Warren Smith, welcome to Dad Saves America.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, uh, I saw your viral lesson, like a lot of people did, sort of on Twitter and then on YouTube, and then the news media that surrounded it. So, for those that are coming in cold, why don't you just lay out first sort of what the lesson was, and we'll link to the video in the comments, but set the stage for it because I thought it was such a refreshingly calm lesson in Socratic discourse. What came next shouldn't be so obvious and predictable as far as what happened to you. But let's start with the original video. What happened? Lay it out for me.
Well, I teach content creation to high school students full time, or it was. And so we were in a class, we were doing a broadcast, and the student was going to be on camera as the anchor, I guess you could call it. And he was kind of just feeling nervous. And we often do podcasting, and they seem to really enjoy it. We kind of talk about the news of the day. So we kind of did that as an exercise, a warm up. And I was like, all right, let's just treat it like a podcast. What's something that would be interesting to talk about? So, well, I'd like to ask you about Harry Potter. I think he said. I said, all right, hit record. So these guys want to talk about, or JK Rowling. You guys want to talk about JK Rowling? So what's up? And he asked me an interesting question. So how have your views on Harry Potter changed given JK Rowling's bigoted opinions? It's one of those questions where if you don't address the acorn within the question, you're not really being logically responsible, I feel like. So yeah, it was just a natural exchange that I've had often and wasn't really thinking about it at the time. And then later I looked at it and I was like, that's interesting. And say, yeah, that was how it came about, to answer your question.
All right, I'll keep this quick. If you like what you're hearing and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our new content as it comes out every week. And now, back to the conversation. So you're teaching high schoolers, and you have this exchange, and you walk the student through their thinking and their assumptions, right? And you just through asking questions in a very very calm way. And you and so I guess first question is, you put it up on YouTube. Why did you put the video up on YouTube?
Yeah.
Which I think that's how it ended up on Twitter. Am I right, or did you actually post it on Twitter as well?
I did not post it on Twitter. I haven't been active at the time. I hadn't been active on Twitter about 4 years. I did have an account from a previous school where I taught. They were very active on Twitter, and we uploaded all the newscasts, and the students enjoyed that. But I hadn't in a long time. I had been inspired, honestly, by Jordan Peterson, where he was recording his lectures. I thought that's really smart. It's because it's such an interesting technology, YouTube. I agree with him that it is a Gutenberg revolution. We don't fully understand the consequences or the ramifications, what this could mean when we have the ability to, when you're just teaching with a group of students, it has the potential, if someone finds it interesting, to reach so many other students. And what are the ramifications of that on education? That was kind of in the back of my mind for a few years. I hadn't really uploaded anything in that format in a while. I used to, when I first started teaching, I did that often, not often, but whenever I could. I thought it was useful to have a documented, and also you can use that for your teaching portfolio. And often we have to provide evidence of our teaching.
Hmm.
And it's really easy when you just have a video of yourself teaching. Many teachers probably don't like that. They wouldn't want to do that, but I enjoy it. So that was the thought process. I uploaded it kind of to my YouTube. I wouldn't call it a teaching portfolio channel, but it had a kind of a mixture of that along with my narrative experiments. And it's just kind of been no one's really been watching it before this. It was just kind
Yeah,
of a journal of my video work.
yeah. How many subscribers were on the channel before this video took off?
I had uploaded a feature film that I wrote and produced back in 2013, and we had gone through the distribution game that you play, which I learned my lesson. It didn't amount to much, and I thought I'm just gonna share this on YouTube. I'll get more. I'll be able to potentially about. Well, I uploaded that. That got 300,000 views, which
Oh,
I was like, whoa, that's the only thing I'd ever uploaded that's ever done that prior to this. And that I had about 3,000 subscribers as a result of that. I since took it down when I was able to then reach the number to monetize. But when I tried to monetize to YouTube, I think they thought I had just uploaded a movie. They didn't understand that this was my movie and they
right.
wouldn't monetize me. So I deleted it. And so I got rid of all those views, but that's where the subscribers came from.
Gotcha.
Just 3,000.
So you're a teacher. You have an interesting lesson. The student's voice can be heard, but cannot be seen. So it's really just a disembodied voice asking some questions about JK Rowling and whether she's a transphobe, and you calmly walk through it, and it takes off. So why did it take off? I mean, I just checked before we started recording, and that the original tweet has 45 million views on it, which is just astonishing. Why did that? Why do you think that took off the way it did? Because at one level, it's it's what I think any normal, reasonable person would say is what a good teacher should be doing, which is getting a student to think critically about their beliefs.
And people have asked me that, and I honestly, I've spent these past months trying to get to the bottom of that because that is the question. And it's never one thing. It's always multi-layered. But I think, well, first and foremost, because there's a transformation that occurs. There's a real-time epiphany, which is rare, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and without change, there's, it's essential in filmmaking and in storytelling with the three-act structure. If there's no change, there really hasn't been a journey. So there is kind of that three-act structure within it. I think resonates instinctively. People aren't identifying that in a YouTube video, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And that just got lucky that occurred. But also, I think it was how we mentioned before. There's that acorn within the question itself. That I don't know if that's the right term, but there's a presupposition, and that's how that often that is how presuppositions present themselves. They're kind of just baked into a larger question, or
Yeah.
and you need to address that. And I think it's because it was minimal. There wasn't trying to tell the student they're wrong. It wasn't trying to prove a point. The evidence did the work. It was just a matter of asking the right questions in order to have the evidence become available. And there was really I wasn't making a statement or interjecting an opinion. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing, because I think, and look, on this channel, I'm as guilty of being presentational. Like, it's like definitionally, it's what I'm doing a lot of the times, is presenting ideas when I'm not in a conversation. And there's something about the restraint you showed and the listening. You were actively listening, and you managed to not jump in and give an easy answer or guide your student to an answer. You could feel it. You could feel the sense that you had his opportunity to learn at the foreground of your concern, was how I interpreted it. It's like, here's someone who actually cares that this student gets to experience the process of grappling with an idea that they hadn't really thought about critically. And how often did you get to have these kinds of interactions with students? How exceptional was this moment, or was this something that you were practiced at?
It was it was rare in the sense that there was a camera rolling, but I do think this is just how the most effective conversations I have with students in my observations have followed this pattern where you're not coming in with an opinion or telling them they're wrong. You're asking why. Why do you think that? And if you do that genuinely, they can feel that. I think, I think that especially teenagers, they can sniff out ulterior motives or if you're not being genuine.
Yeah.
But if you're just simply like, that's interesting. Why do you think that? Okay, yeah, let's look at that tweet. Okay, so what about that is transphobic? I'm not saying I could easily have said that's not transphobic, but that's a very different angle than saying, okay, so you find that transphobic. Tell me more. That's the difference I've come to realize in my own. And so, yes, I had a student ask me not too long before that, what's the difference between fascism and socialism? I keep hearing these words, and people often are like, oh my goodness, a high school student doesn't know the difference between that. But people, yes, that's true. Yeah, he did ask that. We had a really interesting conversation with another teacher. And when there is another teacher, and you have to do it in this, you can't come at it from an opinion. There's always opinion, like you said.
Yeah.
It's how you present it, though. If it's genuine, and the other teacher senses that, and then next thing you know, there might be 5 students sitting there, 6 students, and normally they're looking at their phones or their computers. But when something like that occurs, I've noticed they just suddenly start watching. They love seeing 2 teachers having a genuine conversation. And one person might disagree about socialism, and oh, in the Netherlands it's socialist, and oh, really? And it's
Right.
it,
Right. How
it and
so?
this yeah, the students just, I don't even know I don't think it's like watching a good movie. I don't think, in the same way, I can't tell you why that video interested people. I don't think people often even can tell you why themselves. In the same way, a movie, you don't necessarily always know. It's just, so the students don't know why. It's just something happens. It's interesting.
So, set the stage for me a little bit. So you are, because what comes next, uh, is the school ends up firing you, and I want to hear that, and you posted a video about that was very raw and also very restrained, but very clearly emotional. Like I don't know if that was the same day. Maybe that's my first question: is when you posted that video that you had been fired from your job for going viral, or for whatever they claimed it was. Um, did that happen that day and you posted that video? Tell me about that experience.
I No, that video was posted the day after.
Okay.
When I got fired, I came home. It happened around 10 in the morning, or 11 in the morning. And I came home and I just was kind of dazed. And it's strange, and I can get into it a bit, and tell you more. But to answer your question, there was a physical response. It's weird. It was a physical response. I just like started throwing up and slept on the bathroom floor that day. And then the next day I went and walked. There's some trails by my house. I just walked and walked.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm just going to sit down and record this, it would be unwise to post this now. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to get it off my chest. And that's what I did. And I waited and didn't do anything with it. So that was when I recorded that video. As far as how it came about, that occurred 4 months after the viral video. And the reason that was articulated to me, and I don't want to speculate, I can only communicate what was articulated directly to me on the day. And the rest is because we can't read anyone's mind, but we
Right.
can apply critical thinking and logic and induct like what reasoning we think might be behind it. But I had uploaded a video that was almost identical in format that came about in a similar. Remember, I mentioned to you how I have hours of podcasts with kids and student projects and stuff, and
Yeah.
I was hesitant to share any of that because things just got very, when there's that many eyes on something, or there's a reaction, we should say, to a video like that, you combine that with workplace politics that exist at any job where there's that many people,
Yeah.
and suddenly, like, imagine how that exacerbates something like that,
I,
where we have multiple sets of leadership. And anyways, and then you have some teachers who disagreed with the video. You have some, whether it's about JK Rowling or not. Some of them disagreed fundamentally about JK Rowling. Some of them disagreed with the exercise itself, even though a student wasn't on camera. Though I did, shortly after that, met with the leadership and the lawyers, and they articulated, because I had just done Pierce Morgan, and that was the day they were like, was 2 days after the viral thing happened, done Pierce Morgan. They were like, all right, we got to sit you down with like the head leadership because this is beyond me kind of. And some people might want to talk to you. Maybe there's a podcast that wants to talk to you or something, and I'm sure you're going to probably want to continue making stuff on YouTube because this is a remarkable opportunity logically.
Yeah.
And so they sat down and we went through it and they're like, well, yeah, no rules were broken. And please just, we wish you the congratulations. We wish you the best of luck. Please just don't divulge the name of the school or the student.
Mm-hmm.
But in your video, there's no student, there's nothing divulging the identity of the school. And they said, and you handled it well. You didn't interject an opinion. And the reception was very good. So they seemed to kind of, and that seemed to really frustrate a lot of people that I wasn't kind of fired right away or something. Like there's two sets of principles, and I get some of them are just great. I never had an issue, and there's one that things had already been a bit strange, and this again exacerbated it. And one of them that there's like 4 people that were very close, and my life just kind of things just got it weirder and weirder, and I felt like there was just. And again, this was where critical thinking comes in. It allows you to kind of see these patterns and infer what are motivations. But anyway, so I had an interaction with a student that was almost identical, same runtime, same format, same result. It was very, except this student took the position that JK Rowling was racist or something about Hermione, and so.
A lot of obsession with JK Rowling at your school, I guess. I mean, it makes sense.
Well,
the Harry Potter and everything.
That was on me because I was curious about I asked the student in this case. That student just asked me cold in the first video. This one I did ask the student, and anyway, so I thought, okay, this would be because a lot of people thought that first interaction was fake. I thought, well, wait till they see this one. So I did upload it, and then 8 days went by, and then they called me in to a meeting and said, well, we can't trust, we decided to part ways because we can't trust you to not upload content online. And I thought, I thought, are you talking about that blah, 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 that student? I checked with his parents. I did all the steps I've done for the past 4 years. I even did an additional step and got direct permission from the parents. Like, how is it okay before? And they said, well, there was this one sentence email and it was literally a 1-sentence email. It was the only written change that occurred since the viral thing. It said, if you're going to upload anything, check with your supervising principal. And again, there's multiple sets of principals, and on paper, this one's it doesn't matter. And I didn't check with them. And so, to be fair, there was, I guess, I don't know if that was an additional box that had been added or if it had always existed and they just chose that it didn't apply earlier, and that's their prerogative, to be fair. I don't think anyone should be forced to pay someone they don't want to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it is a business, this school. It's not like a regular public school that I don't want to provide anything that would allow people to search them or anything or deduce anything.
So it's a private school,
though. You could say, you could say that. I don't
know. I interviewed a young girl who had an incident here in Texas, and did what I could for the same reasons. When we filmed with her, we only were shot over her back. Didn't use her name, didn't refer to the school, because these are kids. It's like, even with parental permission, it's a gray area for exposing kids on the internet. I think the sensitivity around that is warranted, and it seems to me like you took all the precautions that I would hope for if I was a parent at your school.
Yeah, and I understood the logic that was presented around, like, those who fundamentally disagreed with that first video. I think the reasoning that was presented to me was, oh, there might be negative comments. You're right, there might be. But if the student, shouldn't they have a choice, though, if they want to participate in something like that? And granted, no one expected that one, and there was no way to anticipate that. So I understand that, anyways. But I do think, like, it's tough because I have a lot of students that a student doing landscaping. He's starting a landscaping company, and I'm helping him build a landscaping website, and he wants to do promo videos. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and that's uploading content online. So it was a technical thing. We could speculate on what the reasoning was, but yeah, I was supposed to check a box. I didn't check it. I do think that if it hadn't been that, it would be something else. They were just kind of waiting for something technical that would give. I thought there was like an 80% chance they just weren't going to renew my contract over the summer, which I've seen happen to so many people at the school. And when I signed on to teach there, it says right in there that you can be fired at any time for no reason. So
Yeah.
again, so then why didn't they just fire me at some other? I don't know. I think they kind of wanted to sign an NDA. I think they needed some leverage to get me to sign that.
So one of the reasons I wanted to invite you to have this conversation, and actually to do it after the firestorm had died down a little bit, is because such a big part to me of what we have to face as parents is the choices for their education. It's like where we send our kids to school constitutes maybe the most impactful thing we choose for them if all else is going okay, like if they don't have any medical issues or stuff like that. And I think we all want our kids, especially as they get older, to have the kind of experience in learning that I saw in your video, which is being challenged, having the adult teacher model what good dialogue looks like in a world where dialogue in this country, everywhere you turn, is just sort of noxious and toxic and polarizing, and there's not a lot of active listening getting modeled. So, how did you get to be good at that? Like, I understand that you studied film and video, so you didn't get an education degree. Is that right?
Let's, well, I am a certified teacher, so I got my teaching certification.
Okay.
It was, real quick, I'll
Yeah.
just
So
tell you the story.
let's
So
go through your background a little bit. Help me understand sort of
yeah,
how you come into this environment to be teaching, and like, how did you prepare for that? What did you study?
yeah. So I went to graduate school in 2016 at Emerson for VMA, which is thinking, oh, my dream job would be to be a professor of film making or something along those lines, and which is my, I do love. And I do teach at Emerson part-time. I teach like, 2 classes online a semester, the script to screen course, which I do enjoy for professional studies for them. Um, but I realized, ooh, a tenure track position. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to bank on that. Like maybe one day, but I got to do something in the meantime. So I just applied to positions and started teaching at a run-of-the-mill public high school. And that's, we would upload thing all the time. That's why I had the Twitter account because they uploaded everything. The students enjoyed that. That was just their policy. Schools have different policies, I guess. And then COVID hit, in right, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I learned a lot about the teachers union when they cut all the first year hires regardless of performance. And but I skipped though because when I got hired at the public high school, I they hired me, and then 2 weeks before school starts, they call me. I don't know if I should say this online, but oh, whatever. And they said, you have a teaching license, right? And I said, what's a teaching license? Because my last name is Smith. And they said, oh man, we were looking at the wrong Warren Smith, but school starts at 2 weeks. Like, we're not going to find anyone else for this position. Okay, we can waive it. It's not uncommon, and you can get your certification on the job. We'll get all the qualifications and the paperwork. So over the course of that year, I was able to acquire my teaching license like on the job actively, which is probably a more effective way than just taking some class. I had already taken graduate school. I've racked up student loans. I was like, I'm not going back to school just for like, so that's how that came about. And yeah, that's how that came about. I forget. That answers your question,
Well,
right?
so I'm gonna dive into this a little bit. So I personally think most licensure is just a scam and just a barrier to entry. And but so you studied film and television. That was your
Yes.
that was your major, and you were going to be
Yes.
teaching a class in media.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it
So
was digital literacy was my certification.
so as I understand it, in K through 12, that's actually unusual. That it's usually the case that the the teacher you have, if it's the math teacher or the science teacher or the history teacher, probably doesn't have a degree in the actual subject matter because the teachers are teaching all kinds of different subjects. And the most common degree, the one that's actually often required, is a degree in education, which is kind of like a degree in nothing. So, so you actually are coming in with an actual degree in the subject you're going to be teaching the kids. So then it's like, oh, but we need to check this box on this license thing that has nothing to do with the subject matter that you're going to teach the students. So what did it have to do with? Like, what did you learn? Did you learn anything from this process of getting this certification? What did it add? And I'm skeptical, but maybe it's great.
I'm trying to think about it now that I don't, I wouldn't say no, you just get the certification and then you get this number assigned to you and it's digital. The closest thing they could find to film and television or the skill set I have was digital literacy. And judging on how difficult it was for me just to log into this Zoom call, I don't know if that's adequate. Though I'm decent, with it. I can make media, but it's really content creation, video. What I teach is video editing, photo editing, 3D printing, web design, Photoshop, thumbnails, content creation, the study of that landscape and how students can use that in this changing world, regardless of what profession they go into. I think it's an essential skill. And it's been a very successful program, I think. But no, I didn't. My teaching license of digital literacy, no, I don't even know what that means to this day.
Yeah. Okay. So confirmation bias check. Okay. So why do you believe that to be true? Um, why should our students, why should our kids learn these skills?
Well, it's just relevant. Think about how what I saw even back in, gosh, I went to film school in like 2009 and I chose that career path because I know filmmaking is the wrong term. We're not working with film, we're working with digital video.
Yeah,
But I could see that video, that as a medium, was becoming ever increasing. Marketing, if you start any kind of business almost, you're gonna, and I worked as a freelance videographer, working for several kinds of businesses. So pottery, potters, schools of various kinds, a lot of educational programs. So many businesses need people who can understand how to work with cameras, whether it's photography or video, and then how to take that footage, edit it, put it out into the world, and deliver it to a client. I mean, I think you can teach someone just how to make a living with a camera. Like that's not a great, you probably want to do more than that, but just survive while you're learning more, it can be done. You as a freelancer and it's an ever evolving world where so regardless of what profession the students end up going into and they don't know at that age often,
for sure.
usually it's going ever more into this direction. I mean, you can learn so much off of YouTube, and if it's not YouTube, it will be something else. Perhaps X will surpass them. But this is the future. I do agree that this is a Gutenberg revolution, and it's massive. The fact that you can learn more, it's a catalog. It is the Library of Alexandria, someone said the other day, of our time. YouTube.
It's I understand that youtube.com is actually the second highest search engine. So, people type in a search, they're probably using google.com, but YouTube is actually number 2. So the I need to look something up, it's almost you're almost as likely to go to YouTube and search for it as to any other web address or app. So you're totally right. It's like a totally different thing than I got a film school degree as well. I went to Penn State for film and video. I graduated in '99, so I'm a little older than you. And the landscape is so fundamentally transformed from when I graduated that It's um it's like we live in a completely different world.
Yeah.
How do you think about the role of a teacher in helping kids prepare for the world? Like what constitutes um a skill that, when you're thinking, okay, I get these kids, I've got this limited amount of time with them. What are you hoping they walk out of your class with, like, as the number one thing? Like, if it's like, if I know I can only accomplish one thing in this time that will set them up to do well, and I will feel like I did my job, and I'm living up to my mission as a teacher. What is it?
To ask why and to question everything so that you can realize that many of these games that people say you have to play by this rule set, if you wait for permission, you might very well be waiting forever, questioning, question everything, and don't necessarily wait for permission. Just go do it if appropriate. Because, and we can take the filmmaking example. That's would be the number one lesson for that for those classes, but I think it applies to many others. The barrier to entry is lower than ever before. The cost of this technology, these cameras can do more than ever before. And it is, Hollywood is the essence of a rigged game, and there are many rigged games in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, there's so many people, classmates in film school, they wait for their turn when they could just go learn along the way and just start creating. Don't wait for permission, just go do it. But there is that element as well of thinking for yourself to be able to identify these games and realize, is this a game I really want to play? And that goes for many professions, because often these students will think they want to play a game and they'll invest in that for college and then learn later that this is not a game I want to play. Maybe it's law, maybe it's filmmaking, or a number of others. So being able to think for yourself, I think, I wish I could tidy that up in a better and tie it with a bow, but I think it's more of just being able to think for yourself and go for it, and not feel like, because so many people are going to tell you why you can't do something, but to realize that to just to and you got to do it appropriately. Yeah, you don't want to be stupid or anything, but to not listen so much to everyone else and to be able to think for yourself and just go for it.
This past fall, I got roped into, I'll say, although I enjoyed it and I jumped at the opportunity to teach a little club class at my son's high school, a video production class. They basically they would do this set of videos at the Austin Symphony. So the videos would need to be done by the symphony at the end of May, which just happened, and starting in, the beginning of the semester, the class would start. And so every Wednesday morning I would go into the class, and I had this grand vision of all this stuff I was going to get to go through with with like 7 kids, mostly sophomores. And very quickly I realized the first lesson, which was, holy cow, I have like 55 minutes, and the first like 5 to 10 minutes is just everyone showing up and settling, and so that's lost. And then as it starts to get towards the end, everybody starts thinking about the next class they've got to get to. So there's at least a certain amount of the end that's lost. And so you really have very little time in a class. And I had this aha of, how does anybody do this? Like, why are classes this short? I think about my own day, and it's like, shifting gears 5, 6 times is really, really like difficult and ineffective, and my brain can't keep up with it. And yet here are our kids getting dropped into, okay, now I'm in the film and video class for an hour, and now I've got to go to algebra 2, and then PE, and then history, and then English 2. Did you have that experience? Tell me about the physical experience of teaching the kids. Like walk through it for me and what worked and what were you like, what were you feeling like, why is this designed this way?
Yeah, I mean the challenge, okay, they're on their phones. Attention span's short. They're not Many of them are going to be taking a video or a movie making class or something along those lines because it sounds easy and they don't. So you got to make them care. You got to show them first, you have to show them why it's worth even listening before you can really teach them technical things. I think the best way to do that is to find things that they're interested in, movies that they're interested in, that are shared by many of them, whether it's Harry Potter or whatever the movie of the day is that's trending, or maybe a YouTubers or things like that. Let's stick with like movies. So find something that they care about and show them that there are profound lessons within it. It's almost like there's this code. If you can make like, and that there's this code within these stories, the power of stories. Then they start kind of lighting up and listening. And yeah, I mean, we've got to keep it from the angle of, let's say, okay, so let's say we are going to be teaching students basic, maybe they're thinking of, oh, I might, after high school, I want to go to film school. This is why storytelling is so important because the world is made up of stories. We see the world through stories. It's just a series of competing stories. And the best story wins, but the best stories are grounded in truth. And there are profound lessons in these stories. That's why they resonate with you. And you have the ability to do similar content and tell stories yourself, whether it's journalism. Maybe I'm teaching a journalism class or with movie making. And then you can move into the technical stuff. But at the high school level, there you might get through the basics of given the limited time frame, like basic coverage and over the shoulder. Then we do the 180-degree rule and everything. And you're not going to get super technical. So I think it's wiser to first get them to understand that the more profound things about movies and why movies are powerful or stories, really. I think if you open it up to stories, because then that opens the door to so many other forms of content, television shows, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. And then just get them to start making stuff, I think.
I it sounds like we approach this stuff similar ways. I sort of opened with the hero's journey and then my first assignment was how pick your favorite movie and map it against it was Dan Harmon's Story Circle, which is sort of the I don't know if have you seen this? It's
Hmm.
yeah, it's a pretty good articulation of the hero's journey. We watched a little video where he's explaining it how it works from Rick and Morty, and thankfully there wasn't anything in this particular clip that was too outrageous to show to high schoolers at a Catholic school, which you can't say for much of Rick and Morty. Um, the There was an interesting process. How do you build a good relationship with students? As a teacher, what's the way to get them to actually care? Because I think this is the hardest thing with teenagers. Like you said, like how do they care? They don't care. Or maybe some of them
Well, they have
care,
to
but most of them don't. Like you've got to convince them to care first. So how do you do that as a teacher?
they have to see that you're because they're so used to adults who are full of crap as well. In my experience, at least, the first thing I say to them is like, "All right, so I welcome to the class." At some point in there, I'm going to lay this out that there's some things like legally I can't tell you whether it's confidential reason or I can't tell you why Mr. Jones, blah, 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 is doing this with his test or, all right. But I will never tell you something I know to be untrue. There's big distinction there. And then they need to understand why things are important. You're not just doing it because it's required for this, or they can just, again, they can smell that, I think. And they can sense when you're genuinely interested, which is if I'm talking about archetypes in Harry Potter or something, or the three-act structure using Titanic, and this is just a simple way to look at three-act structure and how we identify act breaks. I'm genuinely interested in that. But again, I think it goes back to the beginning of this conversation where you're not acting like you're better than them, which is essential to the Socratic method as well. Realizing there's so much we don't understand. None of us are as smart as we think we are. I I'm bumbling my way through this just like you guys, but I'm genuinely curious and I'm going to learn from you as well. And I'm on a journey as well. We're all on a journey always. And there's just something, and that's my opinion doesn't matter. I'm just a dude. If you, I don't want to just be another guy with an opinion because that's in a classroom. It's makes things less effective. So I'm happy to discuss things like help them walk through certain conversations, but I'm going to do it from that way we were kind of discussing, like with the JK Rowling conversation, where I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'll challenge you on it and everything, but I don't know. I think I approach it this way. This is the least bad option I have been able to find. There's no perfect option. It's the least bad option I'm able to find. Can you offer anything better? Genuinely. I would like to know. That's the essence of it. If you approach it from that, where it's like, I don't know right or wrong. I think, I can use logic and yes, objective truth exists and we're going to strive for that, but I could be wrong and they can sense that. I hope that answers
Well, I think one of the
the
things
question.
that I'm struck by in this conversation and in the videos is that these are kind of deep conversations about rhetoric and about logic and about how to critically think. Which, if I look at a syllabus and it says film and video class, those things probably wouldn't be in the description of the syllabus. And so, why or how did you feel this was a good way to inject that energy into it instead of, sort of staying in a much narrower definition of, I'm just going to talk about these technical things of video and filmmaking and how to operate cameras and edit and how to maintain an eye line, so, and all these sorts of things that are sort of technical, or even just film theory about, oh, let's watch old John Wayne movies, or, and talk about the different shots and why when the camera's low like this, it's denoting this or that kind of thing. You're getting to something that almost is more like, it's more philosophy, it's more critical thinking. And do you think that just
Yeah,
imbues everything, or help me understand that?
because to be clear, I'm not at the high school level. I'm not teaching in the full-time teaching position. I think we're describing here. I'm not teaching filmmaking or movie making. My official title is multimedia teacher, and that's basically content creation.
Hmm.
And the best forms of content are often in the forms of podcasts and having it can take many other forms,
Yeah.
but so the students often want to engage in podcasts. And if you're going to have as you know, engaging podcasts need to be able to encompass some of these things and go in interesting directions. And you need to be willing to, as long as it's like appropriate and everything, be willing to let them ask questions. That's why they want to usually do the podcast. They have something they want to talk about. Maybe they're trying to grow a YouTube channel. Um, so it's rare that I have taught high school level filmmaking classes. At Emerson, I would teach during the summers. They called it pre-college because high school students would come live in the dorms for like 5 weeks, and it would be an intensive. But that's a subset. That's a different. Those are students who are trying to go to film school and they want the Emerson experience. And yes, you're teaching traditional filmmaking, but when I'm teaching multimedia, my full-time job, yeah, it's content creation and these I mean I just these students, I think, are hungry for these kind of interactions, and it would be empty if I were. It just kind of goes there naturally. I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing having gone to film school. Tell me if you had the similar experience, which is you go and for whatever reason you're there and you think you want to be a filmmaker, and there's a lot of technical training, and then there's a lot of theoretical stuff. Watching old movies, watching Breathless, and talking about the French New Wave, and then you have to come up with something that you want to say. And when I look back, I almost wish I had gotten a degree in creative writing instead of filmmaking. Like the filmmaking degree today seems like silly. Like you can learn all this technical stuff on YouTube. Being able to understand how to tell a story or how to develop thoughts, characters, and experience, that's what's going to make your movie good. That's what the movie is. Where the camera's positioned, that's all downstream of like, oh, there's a character that wants something and faces obstacles that reveals the nature of who they are. And it was always, it's only in like adult retrospect that I look back on film school and say, man, we didn't really, it was like technical college. And I could have spent a lot less time to go to technical college for this. That could have been like a 1 year seminar. Was that your experience? How do you, because that's what I'm kind of hearing. Like you're doing something quite different than what a college level film and video production experience, at least back in the 90s, was. I don't know how much it's changed. Maybe it's gotten better. What's your experience of that?
Well, the filmmaking class that I teach, it's called script to screen, and so it goes from screenwriting all the way through production, pre-production, production, post-production, all the way through distribution. And I'm teaching it from the traditional model, not because that's what you need. It's because you need to know the rules so that you know which rules to break. And it's meant to be liberating, as I was describing before. So yes, this is a rigged game, and it's one of the worst things you could possibly invest in is a movie. But and if you go, these distributors will rip you off, but it's not meant to be discouraging and meant to be liberating. It's all the more reason to just say, well, forget that and to go do it. And we have all these new emergent technologies and all of that we've been discussing. So then we have these portions. So we go through the whole thing. And my background is training as a producer. So you're understanding like how to take a screenplay, how to budget it, schedule it, hire the crew, look at it from that perspective, which is sometimes overlooked. But the part of the process I think people often enjoy, besides all these little tricks, like how do you avoid distribution getting ripped off in distribution, which often is overlooked in film school, but it's the screenwriting portion, the storytelling that you were describing. Being able to simplify down. Yes, there's like the wheel and the eight. There's so many different ways to break down story structure. So I try and just when you're trying to fit like the whole thing from script to screen within 5 classes, you really start to hit on just what's most important. And I kind of thought about it when I was designing that as, okay, if this was the last class that I was going to teach ever about filmmaking, what would be the most important things in this limited amount of time? And that's been the philosophy of it. And I'm very grateful that Emerson allowed me that opportunity where they're like, you just design a class, what you think. And that's what came out of it. So I try not to get bogged down because I agree that you can go watch these. I hate playing YouTube videos in class as I feel like it's a waste of time, especially when
Yeah.
people are paying for it or whatnot. You could do that on your own. And yes, visual examples are great, but I think people really enjoy well, I enjoy as well the breaking down archetypes and story and screenwriting. So I think that's extremely important. Okay, because the screenplay, this is what I always emphasize, is that coming up with the idea, the story, because without that, none of it matters. None of the technical stuff matters.
Right.
It doesn't matter how good your camera is. If you don't have so that is so difficult and so important, you can't afford to think about anything else until you have that. And that, oh, yeah, that's how there's got to be that emphasis on that part.
Because without story, you don't have anything else.
That was the path I took with my kids this semester was okay. After like two of the classes, it was like, wow. So that's 2 out of 10. I think I'm going to spend 80% of this on them writing a script. And then I will have them actually come into this room to film them recording it and spend the rest of the time editing it, which is the other part of the process that I think is like where all the action's at, where you're having to grapple with, well, what's good and how long should I stay on this and which take should I use um and uh and I think that one of the things that's been so interesting in our modern time is, you know, your students, the students I had, my son, his generation, they list like digital media influencer as a career goal for themselves. And we, all the graybeards and old men, laugh at that. But I actually don't laugh at it because, first of all, this is what I do for a living now, so I'm sitting here doing that. But secondly, I actually think that the set of skills that you have to sort of employ to even go after that is quite entrepreneurial. So I think there's like a misunderstanding in our culture of the benefit of wanting to be a YouTuber when you're in high school. How do you think about that? And how did you interact with your students with this sort of this part of the culture? So how often would a student say, I want to be a Twitch streamer for my job? And how did you interact with them in that kind of way?
I've had several students take that approach. And again, this goes back to the idea of like, I'm no smarter than them. I'm not going to laugh at that. Though so the leadership that I would answer to, there were comments where I heard them saying, there's no point. It's not like they're going to go be a YouTuber. Why would you? It was frowned upon. It was discouraged. And I get it. That is like the number one profession that these kids are desiring. But I'm not going to, who am I to scoff at their, they're not going to learn that it's not the right game, or they don't have, that's not what they want to do without trying it.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to, I'm so hesitant to pull the plug on enthusiasm. Wherever it is, if someone, that's my big models. If someone comes into the class and there's something they want to do, there's a reason they're there. Why would I discourage that? And then say, no, you have to do it this way because this is the syllabus or the framework. And so that's always in the forefront, I think. I don't discourage it at all. I've had a lot of different students want to do game streaming, and I don't know much about, I'm still learning how to do all that. I'm trying to learn how to do that. But yeah, you can make, you're doing it as well, and now here I am trying as well. I never thought I'd be doing this, but, and it's the only reason I'm able to do it okay, what is luck? People think it's like being in the right place at the right time, but it's being prepared for when opportunity knocks. So that video goes viral, and I'm faced with a choice. Do I play the game or do I just let it pass over and walk? And that'd be easier. I would regret it forever because this is a once in a lifetime thing, and ambition is not something I discourage. I don't think ambition should be like, oh, you want to go make money doing this, or of course. You have a responsibility to yourself and your family to make the most of what is given to you. And this came about, and it's a one in the million. It's stupid that this even happened. The fact that that video went viral, but
Yeah.
I would regret it, and I know what regret feels like. So I'm going to play the game. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm not going to let it compromise my teaching, and that's what I was trying to straddle. I was trying to play both of those I, and do my best at it. So, anyways, but that's so with the students, there's a lot of value in being able to understand how to work the camera and do it so that if something like this that happens to me does occur, the only reason I was able to even run with it in that capacity was because of my background working with camera and narrative, and I can edit. And I have like a little light or whatever, the stuff I've accumulated. You never know where your path is going to take you. It's almost never going to go the way you think. And if you do stubbornly stay on that path only towards the destination you thought in undergrad or whatnot, when something does occur you're never willing to quite go into the unknown.
So play that through. So this happened. What was the opportunity? You got media coverage. Obviously, we're here talking. But how did you understand what the doors that were starting to open meant? That you would say, okay, there's something here, and I need to see where it goes actively so that I don't feel like I've missed an opportunity. What did that break that down for me?
I honestly, I didn't know, and I don't know to this day. I'm in the middle of the unknown right now, like more so than ever. But you just keep going one step at a time. As cliche as that sounds, it happened on a Sunday, and a friend texted me. They said Elon Musk tweeted a video about you. Okay, I don't know what that means. I don't. So I couldn't even remember my login password. They're like, he's like, dude, reset your password because this is only going to last for like 2 weeks, you know, if that.
Yeah, or 48 hours.
Right. And then, so yes, exactly. So within that 48 hours, so Pierce Morgan's show, they only care about that 48 hours. They asked me to come on. I'm faced with this dilemma. Do I run it up the chain at school? Because what's going to happen is I go to the principal who's already, and he's just going to say, well, this is beyond me. I got to run it up to the person who's in charge. She's not even in the building. And that's the person who fired me eventually. And then my fear is that she would say, no, you can't do it. What do I do in that position? Right? Like, so I just didn't ask for permission. I just did it and asked for forgiveness. Worked out. Because again, I'll probably never speak to Pierce Morgan again. It was just a guy like me. It's just like a once in a lifetime thing. I'm going to go for it. I don't know what's going to happen the next day, but I know today I can do that. And some people will scoff at, oh, you're a grifter. You're talking to Pierce Morgan because your video went viral. Yeah. Now, a video going viral doesn't make you anything. That's a flash in the pan. It was dumb
Yeah.
luck. That doesn't mean I deserve an audience. It doesn't mean I can grow a YouTube channel. So then I had faced with, okay, there is this potential here, but that's not real. I have to try and turn it into something real. It takes a lot of experimentation. But again, this is what I teach. This is what, if I'm mom, why teach the students how to do this stuff if I'm not going to be willing to take the chance myself? So then I start throwing the spaghetti at the wall and trying to find my footing. One other teacher, me, we use our personal gear to set up a space in my house to start recording YouTube videos. Once a week, we would record one and just try and learn and adjust. And so I don't know. Honestly, it's a good question. I don't know what it means. You never know what's going to. Someone wants to talk to you. And then it goes completely blank. You know it does go blank. People are like, oh, this has changed everything. You know it potentially can, but it doesn't really. Then it goes quiet and you're just trying to grow a YouTube channel. Yes, there's some people now watching it, but it can vanish like this. So when you are in the unknown, it's stressful. But the way I see it now with this latest development, I am all in and I'm going to try and make the most of it. It's still scary though.
One of the things this resonates with me a lot because when I was working at Spike TV and the financial crisis hit. So it's right. You said you graduated in 2006.
High school in 2006.
Yeah. So okay. So basically, as you're coming out of college then in 2010, undergrad.
2013, I transferred. I did 2 years and then transferred.
Okay.
Did 4 more.
So the I'm working at Spike. The financial crisis is happening. I've been listening to this podcast with this economist out of George Mason University called Econ Talk, and I'm learning about Hayek and the boom and bust cycle and how the Fed causes the business cycle, and I'm geeking out on all this stuff. So I reach out to him and I say, I want to make a video about Hayek because everybody's talking about how we need stimulus, which is Keynes, and let's do something. And it's 2000. This is 2009. President Obama's just taken office. He passes this nearly $1 trillion stimulus, which now feels like a drop in the bucket. We now spend more than that in interest on the debt every year. But basically 9 months later, we released this rap video, Fear the Boom and Bust. It is a total weird side project. I take a week off from work to literally like produce it and shoot it and direct it. And, I call every favor I've got. and the thing takes off, and I'm in the same boat you were in to a much lesser degree because 45 million 45 million views is insane. But I'm at a job and I'm getting invited to come on talk shows. And I'm like, well, wait a second. I'm at a media company. Who do I talk to about this? Am I allowed to do this? I talked to a guy in the PR department. I'm like, so is that okay? Like, I'm also like a private citizen. Don't I have rights outside of work to do things and to represent myself? And that's such a weird thing to deal with. It's like, well, my job doesn't own my entire identity. And it was a strange thing to balance. And then it sort of fades and you're like, well, that was the craziest thing ever. What do I do now? Like back to work or what next? And I ultimately left my job and started Emergent Order, and that's why we're here talking, because of this silly rap video that was like a piece of activism. So, um, it, it's like entrepreneurship is sort of thrust upon you in moments like this, I guess, is one way to think about it. How do you think about entrepreneurship, and does that factor into the way you've talked to and taught students?
It goes right to the idea of don't be afraid to just make stuff and go for it. Nothing would please me more. There is that, I think to me entrepreneurship is that deep thing within me, the trying to build something of your own. And that's what I'm trying to do. That would be, because you see people do it. It's rare though, I guess, and you've done it. And it is a remarkable opportunity to try. Um, yeah, as far entrepreneurship, it's you're in the unknown. There's no certainty, and sometimes it's not. I've talked a bit about how important it is to voluntarily enter the unknown, how that makes all the difference. That voluntary aspect of it. That's the hero's journey for me. The part of the hero's journey that's
The call to
very
adventure.
interesting. Yeah, well, and then voluntarily, when you see a character or the hero be forced into it, it just doesn't resonate in the same way. It sometimes happens. The reluctant hero is an archetype, yes,
Yeah.
but there's always some part within. Maybe it's in the third act where there's a voluntary. If there's completely no voluntary aspect to it, um, but sometimes it's not. But where I'm at right now, I still think there's still a voluntary part of it, even though, yeah, I wouldn't have chosen for things to go quite the way they've gone, but it's still a voluntary journey.
Your original video was about JK Rowling and is she a transphobe? And our kids, as I see it, are getting bombarded by debate, a kind of an ideology of victimhood that I find incredibly pernicious. You're talking about voluntary, to take action, to voluntarily become the hero. You have to first reject that you are the victim of circumstance. Even the call to adventure, that you can't be the victim to the call to adventure. You actually have to choose to take the sword and go on the journey. How did you, being in the trenches in school, in high school, what did you experience of this sort of culture of victimhood? Everybody likes, the woke thing. How much of that was embedded in the culture of the students, of the school? I don't care. I'm not that interested in like whether your school was woke or some nonsense like that. I'm more curious about the culture that's taking place inside of the student body and how you were experiencing that as a teacher.
It's worse at the college level.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's way worse
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
college level. Honestly, I don't, my experiences with the students, I don't think the issue is with the students. It's more with the adults. Now that changes a little bit when you get into college because they're kind of merging into that and you don't have the parental check, if you will. They're hundreds of miles away. There's no oversight in that sense from parents or potential pushback. let's see. As far as the students,
We hear a lot about anxiety and a kind of collapsing inward happening with sort of with young people. But this was your job. Like, were you seeing that? Does that big meta narrative play out in your experience of high school kids?
yes, I do. I have experienced where I do think there's too much therapy going on. A lot of students, they wear their anxiety as a badge of honor, and it then becomes a sort of a social cue. It becomes fashionable in a way to have anxiety, for example. So there is that component to it, but I think it's still the adults who are responsible for cultivating, feeding into that, feeding it. It's the parents who are saying, "Oh, put them in therapy." And there's good forms of therapy, though, but there's also it can make things worse. And I've seen this various levels, so I do think that's a real thing. The solution, I think, is leading by example.
What do you
And
mean?
if you have a teacher okay, a teacher who can model, let's just take, I disagree with the idea of toxic masculinity. So if you have a teacher who just doesn't even entertain that, I don't even, and if I'd be happy to have a conversation around a student but I think modeling, just being absent of that, just don't even think about that. Don't let that even play into the classroom in any form. Yeah, if someone wants to write a paper on it, we can have that conversation, but it's sort of an unspoken thing, and I think that allows you to kind of model that in your behavior. But I think they can pick up on those things. So just leading by example, being willing to have those conversations. I don't know, that's not a very good answer, but
No, this is hard stuff. I think um, in thinking about your role as a teacher with kids, how do you think about the way the 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 power dynamic, if you will, the sense in which you are occupying a position of authority in their lives, and you have a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that. Um, how equipped did you feel? Have you felt like you were to deal with that? How have you thought about that fact? Because they are, when you talk about modeling, it is true. They're looking to us and paying attention to things that we might not even be thinking about in terms of how we behave and talk and conduct ourselves.
yeah, exactly. As far as being like qualified, I don't, where would that qualification come from, or the being equipped, sorry, equipped.
Yeah.
How would we become equipped? Who's going to equip you? The class you took to get your certification? Someone in the teacher's lounge, like leaderships, no one's going to equip you for that. Your professional development days, which don't even get me started on that. Like, no one's going to equip you for that, it comes from common sense and logic. And if you're absent, okay, I was having a conversation with somebody about this, where that's where I think the student, they can smell that. If there's not logic and common sense behind what you're asking them to do, they're just going to push back on it. And that's where they're just like, well, okay, they're just asking me to do this and it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. Because I remember being a student. I remember how that felt. Or I was just thinking, like, is this guy for real? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we talking about this? And then if you ask why, and then they say, well, that's just because that's the way it's done. That never flew with me. It frustrated me so much to the, yeah.
It was funny. You know, similarly, I was in my third class we had 10 classes for this thing. And in my third class, I realized that we weren't going to be able to do my ridiculously elaborate curriculum that I had conceived in my head like a newbie. So, at the beginning of the class, I said, okay, here's the deal. Uh, there is no grades here, right? So because this was a club, it wasn't like a class they were taking. It doesn't contribute to your GPA. So success in this class is whether or not we get to the end and you've made something that you're proud of. That's success. If you haven't, that's going to be a bummer because it'll feel like a waste of time. And who wants to waste time? So what I'm going to try to do is help get us to a place where each of you are going to have something at the end that you feel like you made. And we have a deadline. And I asked around the group because it was small. It was only 7 kids. Like how much do you feel like you understand how to manage a project? Which I wasn't even sure if they were going to comprehend that question, to be honest. Like, because project management is like seems like a sort of esoteric thing that I happen to care a lot about because producing content is always a giant project management challenge. And they all sort of got it because they'd all done projects together in groups and they saw when it all goes off the rails and then like one student is doing all the work at the last minute. So we spent a little time talking about that and how much it can kind of suck when you have a project and it doesn't like work and you don't all contribute and it doesn't get across the finish line. And then we sort of agreed on a path together. Okay, here's how I think this can work so that we can take this time we have and at the end of it get across the finish line. And that was like the first time where now I felt like they were alive. And it's like, okay, I got to do this again, and that's got to be class number 1 instead of class number 3. So as you've taught, what are the lessons you picked up to build that process, to understand how to connect with them so that you're not just like the squawking Charlie Brown character at the front of the classroom going rah, 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 rah. Like what was that process over time as a teacher for you?
That comes down to demeanor, I think. And there's an aspect of teaching that's kind of like performance is not the right word, but you're standing up in front of a group of people. You're trying to engage them so that they can learn. You therefore have to be engaging, which I think some people try too hard or they think that means something else. I think that comes from authenticity in the same way perhaps that carries over to YouTube and content creation. Because it's still, you're just connecting with people. If you treat them, you don't treat them like teenagers. Yes, you keep everything like, common sense ethical. But if you treat them like human beings with potential, young adults, like they're about to enter the world, and you don't talk down to them, and it sounds so overly simple, but I think there is something to this idea of just don't overthink it because they can feel that. That would be my response. Just keep it some authenticity.
So you get fired from this job pretty unceremoniously, it sounds like. I thought there were all these teachers unions and stuff. So were you like, did that not apply to you? Were you not a member of the teachers union? How did this, and
No,
I happen to think the teachers unions are broadly a force of pure evil.
I
So
agree.
I'm not saying you
They're
should
awful.
have been, but I am curious, like, how did you interact with the rest of the sort of ecosystem of school things here that this happened? Is it just because it was a private school they had a lot more discretion?
Well, that's an interesting, good question. No, I'm not in a teachers union. As far as the ecosystem, I was just like deleted. There was no ecosystem. I mean, there was that teacher I was working on the YouTube channel with who worked at the school, but I knew after this they weren't going to let him continue that. And he has a family and he could be fired at any time. A few days later, texted me. He texted me 2 days later. He said he didn't even know. He said, "Are you okay? I just found out." And I just said, "Well, it happened very fast. I'm super confused, but I'll manage." And then he texted me after I posted that video about it. He said, "Can I come get the equipment?" He came over, and it was like a different person though. It was a bit strange. And I don't even know if it's worth getting into all that, but it yeah, it was strange. And he was my best friend too for like the last 3 years. I probably will never see him again, so that sucks. So there was really no ecosystem. I was just deleted from the ecosystem. Uh, the rest of that question,
Well, you're touching on something that is an oddity of the work life, right? Which is we develop relationships at a job, and and then if you get fired or put in your notice, it's amazing how well, okay, well, now you're not part of this anymore.
this was different. I get what you mean. This was different. This wasn't. I wish I could have put in my notice. Like if they, that would have been the decent thing, it seems to me, to have been like, look, man, I get it. This, you've been here for 4 years. You took this program that was working with like 6 students, and you, for the first 2 years, and then we were able to open it up to the whole building. So, and you had this crazy thing happen, and I understand you had to make a choice, and you are making it, trying to do your best, and it's just doesn't, it's a bit of a liability perhaps for us or whatever the reason. It's just a bit too much attention. So we reluctantly, we want to part ways, but, and you do that in a friendly, reluctant, like two friends parting ways reluctantly because you have no other choice. And we have a reason you didn't check this box. So, okay, that would be understandable, but that's not how this felt. And now and it's difficult to communicate to people because you're thinking about this from the frame of a place where teachers unions exist. There is no teachers union. I wouldn't join a teachers union. They tried to unionize my first year and I voted against it.
Why did you do that? I'm curious. I
I
mean,
think
I've got
teachers
my
unions
priors, but
are
why?
awful because teachers unions, I think they're awful. And I explain how when I was cut from that after when COVID hit, at a public school, they
Yeah,
cut the first year hires regardless of performance. That's not logical activity.
no.
There's no logic there. And there's a lot of other reasons that, about, and if people watch my YouTube, they kind of know I'm an anti-union. I talk about how it's destructive in Hollywood and how it's driven up production costs, and it's destructive to the lowest 80% in the union, and it just
Hmm.
benefits those who are already at the top. It just anyway, it's just economics 101. It's just logic. Unions are not smart.
But
Um,
Marxism. I mean, that ends up being kind of the response. But capital versus labor, as if those are things other than not just
I
abstractions.
totally understand the motivation behind it. But so as well though, I mentioned this contract thing, but this is also with, if you look at the handbook, it also says if you say something online politically that paints the school in a light that they don't like, they can fire you for that. I mean, they can fire you for any reason. This is so.
Sure.
Um, if you say something negative online, this was just in the policy around online, which I went in and looked at afterwards. I was just thinking, so I forgot where I was going with this, but it's not a world where the framework everyone's thinking about this from, it's there. Okay, look, the principal and the assistant principal who hired me 2 years ago were both fired on the same day, and no one knows why. Well, the reason they said was they created an unsafe environment, whatever the hell that means, which is nonsense. It's because it's a political game happening at work. You have at this school, it's very strange. And they're going to watch this. They're going to be poring over every word I say, try and find anything they can use. This is just my opinion. I'm not disparaging the school. You guys chill. But at school where I experienced, they have all these factions, and they are more high school cliquey than the students. Like they go to the bar after work, and who goes and who's hanging out
Yeah.
with who, and it's weird. And it's I knew it was, I was looking at it as a wave I was going to ride until it crashed because it's such a strange environment. No one really can hang on to a wave like that for more than like 8 years until something happened. Like the principal and the assistant principal that hired me and got fired, that was their 8th year. Both of them, I think, had been there for over 8 years and just deleted halfway through the day because enough people wanted them gone, is what I think. It's like there's just dueling factions. There was a coup. I would describe it as a coup. And a lot of people resigned in protest and blah, blah, blah. That's the world I'm talking about. So I forgot what the question was, but
Well, that's all fairly interesting and not that surprising. And part of me says this is why I hate school. Part of me says that's not fair because actually people do this in every context. You get a bunch of people together.
it's a typical business environment. This is not an academic environment. This is more of like the person whose decision it finally had to come down to was a business person, not an educator. I saw her one time in the building. She works in an office building across town running all this stuff. So she's answering to like a board, possibly, like that kind of it's a business. So there's a lot of great schools that are not like this. And honestly, there's a lot of great teachers at the school. So, and it's a good, I don't want to disparage the school. It's not the school. It was just the person. It was like 5 people, basically, that this comes down to. It's not the school, which is one reason I refuse to even name the school, because it would cause so much havoc for so many people, so many students and good teachers. And the people that want me to reveal it would just be drama. Just, it would be like opening the floodgates of the internet for no reason. No good would come out of it. And it just came down to a moral feeling. And yeah, there could have been a lot of potential people were like, oh, well, crowdfund, we'll help you crowdfund, but you'd have to reveal the name of the school. Because to accept crowdfunding, there has to be an actual identifiable villain, blah, blah, blah. You can do podcasts. They'll come out if you just release the name. Fox News was like, we'll do an interview with you. Oh, you won't name the school? At the very last minute, they always do it. And it's like, oh, if you'll just tell us the name of the school, we'll do it.
Right.
Just, sorry, just no.
No, that's the correct response. This is an important question, I think, from a navigating the world we live in 2024 and beyond. So you have had an experience that any person can have, which is we all are on the internet to varying degrees, to ages that are frankly way too low, and something can just take off like crazy. What advice do you have for anyone, for a parent, for a guy in a job that has some weird encounter, posts it on their Instagram, and suddenly Elon's retweeting it and it's going nuts? What's your advice lessons for how to manage the tsunami that comes from that and not absolutely lose your mind, or maybe or whatever, or deal with the losing of your mind as a result?
Yeah. It would be this. First and foremost, live your life in a way. Imagine suddenly 1 million people could see what you're doing at work, but more importantly, how you're doing it. If millions of people could see how you're doing what you're doing, would you want someone to sign an NDA? Would you be afraid? Would you be fearful of it? Or would you say, bring on the transparency? So, and if you do, you can feel that if you ask yourself that honestly. Make adjustments so that if that does happen, because again, this goes to the idea of luck. Luck is really just being prepared, I think, for when it does arrive, if it arrives. But as opposed to what I've experienced, and I think this was the fatal flaw of the people I was just describing, is that they have the technical ability. Like technically, they didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah.
They built the framework they want because they need to be able to achieve the outcome they want and just grab the outcome. Kind of just, oh, we just need to get rid of these two, the principal and the vice principal. Okay, just get rid of them halfway through the day. Okay, now problem solved. Yes, that might not look good. There might be a lot morally, that might not be the wisest course of action. Who cares? I can do it technically, so I'm not worried about it. That's how things seem to go there. If she's technically allowed to do it, she'll just do it because it's a business. But it's not what you're allowed to do, but how you do it. There's going to be more. And then what's her greatest fear in all of this suddenly? It's the optics of it. So then push for an NDA. And that's if you find yourself in that going that avenue where you're just trying to get people to be quiet because you're afraid of transparency, you are doing something wrong. Don't do it.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's good advice. I think it's also as an employer, usually being absolutely inhumane is pretty bad for business. And you could make this argument that, well, it's because of like the cost of reputational damage in some transactional way. But the thing I believe this with all my heart is that the principle of compound interest is powerful in a lot of domains. And one of them is the compounding set of relationships you accumulate over the course of your career. And deleting people is basically like saying, I'm just going to I'm going to put my savings in a zero interest savings account. Or
If you just keep in mind though, this is a business though that is not used, like you're used to people looking and you hold yourself accountable. Imagine a business where you've never experienced anyone outside of your little microcosm. No one cares. No one really cares about the two principals that got fired. Like it's not gonna get out because no one cares. No one's watching. So suddenly, when a teacher, something like this happens, oh my God, your entire foundation starts to everything changes. You start questioning everything. Imagine what that's like. That's what happened.
yeah, yeah, it's traumatic. Have you how how have you thought about that? I mean, in a very real sense, like even the explosive virality has a kind of traumatizing element to it. Have you thought about that very much? I mean, you mentioned offhand Jordan Peterson. I am also a fan of Jordan, and I have very mixed feelings about the psychologizing around traumatic events, but they are real. And how have you grappled with that much?
Oh yeah, it's all I did for the first 2 weeks at least. Like my brain just wouldn't stop thinking about it. And that's why I was walking, except at night when you go to sleep. And then the worst is when you wake up in the morning, right? Like there's that moment and then it all comes back and you're like, oh, so yeah, you think about it, but what's the all, let's see, I wouldn't say that because when you're in the act, when you're in the middle, this isn't over. Like I said, they're going to look at this. And if I didn't sign that NDA because I'm trying my best to move away from them and never have to, I'm so looking forward to the day when I can feel like I'll never have to think about them again, but I am looking over my shoulder and I'm hoping that's over. I eventually got to the point where I reluctantly did hire a lawyer. Even though I can't really afford it, eh, eh, it's so unusual the patterns I've been seeing, what they're willing to do. I feel like there's more. I'm out of my depth here. So yes, I think that in the long term, that was money well spent. I've been grappling with it, man, but what's the alternative? You have to navigate what's in front of you, and that's what critical thinking is. It's being able to identify those patterns and try and anticipate what they're going to do next. Why are they doing this? And these techniques, I mean, these things have helped me especially in these last months when things got strange, navigate to the point where I am, but I feel like I'm almost out of it. But I get what you're saying. I wouldn't say I'm traumatized by any, like, I'm trying to make the right moves. And I don't, no, I wouldn't say I'm debilitated in any way. You have to keep going and getting in that space. Like we talked about victimhood earlier.
Yeah.
There's I get, yes, bad things happen, but that doesn't, if you have to keep going because it's not going to stop. You got to make the right decisions. So Yeah, I guess that's how I'd answer that.
So, what are you working on now? Um, what's the next project that's got your attention? So as taking one step forward at a time.
I'm trying my best to keep this YouTube channel going and growing, almost at 100,000 people. But the thing on my mind, besides everything I was just saying, is financial stability. Trying to, if I can just make enough, if I can make what I was making as a teacher, I'll be okay. Uh, YouTube, 100,000 people on YouTube is not enough.
No.
So I'm looking at other things. We launched the Secret Scholars Academy, working with this platform, this app that who knows what's going to happen with that. It allows me to, where people can pay to either take that filmmaking course or take a critical thinking course where I kind of talk about getting more in depth into the techniques around some of the things that we've been discussing. That's where I am right now. We'll see. We'll see.
I Do you think you'll go back to teaching, like in another classroom environment?
It depends what it would be difficult to go to, I think, a school that wouldn't, I don't know. It would have to probably be a school that sees the whole thing that had occurred as a good thing. But if the right, absolutely, I would if the right thing came along. Yes.
Well, Warren, I think any school that knows or truly cares about having their kids be educated would be lucky to have you because the as a parent, all I want for my son, for our kids, is to be able to get out in the world and navigate it with their critical faculties always at play. There's so much that we get hit with that is unanticipated, like this entire conversation. And if you can't do that, you are really unmoored. So I ask this as we kind of come to a close. I ask this of every guest, and I call this we called this Dad Saves America, this channel, because I think that's a role we as men play that is special and that's heroic, and that when we do that, when we embrace it, we we have the greatest impact first on our family and our kids, but then on the community and on the country as a whole. If everybody does that, if everybody embraces that, especially men, the country gets better really quickly. How do you think about your role, your hero's journey in the American story?
I absolutely agree with what you were saying. When you're faced with a decision, a fork in the road, okay, do I let this blow over or not? Why make the most of what is given to you? Because I absolutely agree with you. Your first obligation, arguably your only real obligation, because if you can't do this, you can't do anything else, is to yourself so you can be utility to your family and then potentially your community. And I've really enjoyed in the last year being able to become a volunteer firefighter and do things like that in my community. And that has been huge in this whole period, having that group of guys and a few, you know, um, I don't see much beyond that. Maybe one day I'll be able to do more, but I don't see much more. I'm just a school teacher. Well, I was, and now I'm doing YouTube. But yeah, no, what you're doing is awesome. I think I absolutely agree with everything you just said. But
Well, Warren, I appreciate everything you've done with your kids. I hope you get in front of many more to teach them the lessons of critical thinking and of storytelling. Thanks for being on Dad Saves America.
thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you are doing.
I appreciate that very much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.